Okay, random number generator. What number shall I get today? Alright, I've had 10 already. Give me another one. 7, already did that one too. 4? Alright, I can do 4. 4 is doable. Let's go to dinner. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It had been shaping up to be an ordinary day, like any other, until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted.
So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight?
I feel like I've gone to your house probably in the past for dinner before, so what's different tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah? Yeah, I'll go.
That's,
It was... huh? Oh.
It seemed that Cove still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Oops. It's nice to be on that end this time, because usually Cove interrupts me. That's great.
Cool. Well...
He stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again.
My mom and dad... they really want you to be there, if your parents don't have a problem with it. They asked me to ask you.
So your parents want me over for dinner. And they asked you to ask me. Well, time to turn the anxiety notch up to 1,000,000. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before.
Also, I want you to be there too.
Aw, thanks.
Can you? Come over, I mean.
Why am I the only one invited? I am wondering about that, but I don't know if I'd ask right now. I would probably ask the moms before committing. I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you.
Okay, tell me when you can.
He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for a dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. Guy. And that was that. For now, anyway. You called Ma right afterward, and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to get permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Yep. Cove got a quick call from you afterward, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. Yeah, apprehensive is an understatement. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
come on.
Hey, Molly! Welcome! Please, come on in. And again, I love this apartment, or this house, or whatever. I just love the layout of this. It looks so nice. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. It's alright. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that.
Hey, Molly! Welcome to our humble abode.
You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned and a large spoon in hand.
Hope you're hungry, because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff.
True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. Is that what that expression's supposed to be? I feel like both, Cove's parents are giving me an evil grin. And I'm like, yes, can I help you? He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder.
You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already.
She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP.
That's sweet. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more.
Well.
Sorry about that, Molly. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in.
I don't butt in.
She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe.
So?
How are you doing? I'm good. Kyra didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully.
Molly, you made it. Thanks for coming.
Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were only a few feet away. Hello, Cove. You gave a shy wave that felt a little stupid for it. You put your arm back down. Stop, you guys are so cute. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes.
Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room.
As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you.
You coming?
The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two!
We'll call you when food's ready to go.
With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. I mean, if we were friends all along. It's either this one or this one, I feel. I'm gonna flip a coin for this choice. Let's see. Heads, rarely. Tails, standard. Hiya! Tails. That's a standard room visit. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. Ooh, but this is my first time seeing it. Cool, cool, cool. I like his little collection of beach-related stuff. That is awesome. Not gonna lie, kind of jealous of it. It's very tidy. I like it. I approve of this room. Also, I like that you have a plant. I don't think any of my guy friends even knew what a plant was. So you get bonus points for that, Cove. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. My dude. That's just how he was, a little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. Yeah, I remember the one time we came back covered in sand.
You can sit wherever you want.
Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to decide. I would sit. I don't think I'd be bold enough to sit on the bed, so I'm gonna go sit on the chair. There was a desk chair in the room for a reason, after all. You walked over and rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. He definitely used his bed space more often than this. Well, too late to complain now, you just have to deal with it. Cove frowned. He was actually disappointed you picked the chair. He might have hoped you'd be closer. I'm sorry. I'm really nervous. I don't know why I'm here. What's happening? I mean, I am charmed by his reaction, but I would also in this moment be like, I'm overthinking it. Yeah, smile comfortingly. That's my go-to in these situations. Ha ha ha. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing the other's every move. Oh, this is so awkward. You're adorable. Do we continue the non-verbal communication, or... Yeah, you know what? Non-verbal. Cove took that as a non-answer it was, shifting nervously on the bed. He pointedly glanced away from you, the tips of his ears red. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
Yes.
My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now.
Wow, that's a long time. Yeah, I was not expecting him to be like, oh, yeah, I've had these fish for literal years. Also, hold on, my phone just baduped. I forgot to silence it. Let me just... There we go. Alright, no more ba-dings. We're good. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names?
I don't name them. Well, not really.
You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing.
I can't believe I've had tangerines in 2 visual novels in the last week. Why tangerines of all things? This is getting out of hand. I love it though.
I've had a lot of fish, and I'm not that good at coming up with names.
Relatable. Super relatable. I suck at names, man. You didn't have any pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animals or whatever else. It was such a hard choice. It is.
Oh, a couple of them have other types of names.
He pointed to a small orange-ish red fish. My goodness, try saying that 3 times fast. It was minding its own business away from the others.
My dad named her Dreamcatcher. And that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one.
I feel like your mom and I would get along well in the naming department. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
It's nice.
He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Please don't ask me to name one of your fish. You're going to be so disappointed in me. God damn it.
Do you want to name one?
I mean, I'd love to,
but the pressure.
Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest.
Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which you want to name.
He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with... You know what? I gotta stick with my small fry, like myself. I wanted the smallest fish. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Frank. Ah yes, Frank. Sunbeam. Gil. Molly. Cove. Man, even I'm not that unimaginative to name it like after myself or Cove. When I read the description for the small fish, I immediately had a name in mind, so I'm like, I gotta go with the small fish. Bubble! I love that. That's a great name for a fish. I wanted to call it Flash, though, because it's like orange-red and it's running laps around all the other fish. So, for the Flash. Yeah.
Alright, it's Flash.
With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at Flash as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house. Not even fish. Yeah, that's relatable. I did have fish a couple of times when I was a kid, but they died very soon after I got them, and that was the end of that. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that.
That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was upset about it when I was younger, for sure. Right? My moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet? It doesn't make sense.
Maybe when you're even older, they'll let you?
I don't know. They seem pretty against it. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. It started coming out with no warning, earning you a brief, confused look from Cove. One time Lizzie, or Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and hid in her room. She came down for food, but then she ran back upstairs after. It was hard to understand. Our moms left her alone at first. But that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and she screamed. Mom and I went over to see what was wrong. We found Lizzie with a big lizard in her arms. Ah, cool. Cove's eyebrows rose at that and he leaned forward in interest.
Really?
A lizard? Where'd that come from?
Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. She picked it up to find out. Then she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for the whole day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were upset at her. They worried about putting it out during night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really sad. She did release the lizard, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did stop being unhappy, it was almost like it never happened. You shook your head, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face.
I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling.
You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him... It's a nice idea in general, but my sister is Elizabeth. Yeah. There are ups and downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's... interesting. I think your family is cool.
He didn't have much else to say. Though, while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms, too. 13. I don't know if I was in, like, my parents are the best mindset at 13. But got along, I would say, for the most part, for sure. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them, and they loved you. That was what really mattered. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Ouch! The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. Oh no, am I gonna get another option? This is also a horrible time! I'm here for like some kind of important dinner, and his mom is here, and already is like, she just tell him off. I don't want to, no. I don't know if there's ever going to be a good time to tell Cove about this deal. I must take it to my grave. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. It's a bad time. It is a bad time. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. Yep, it'll be in our wedding vows. By the way, our whole relationship started because your dad paid me money. Oh no. My goodness. Mr. Holden, what are you cooking over there? It's been hours. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy, making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
It's time for dinner.
Cove watched the firmly shut door he had been locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing.
I'm glad you came.
Cove peeked back at you from the side.
It's been awkward.
Oh, yeah. You wish you had something nice or comforting to say to that. Hopefully just being there for him was enough. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be as good a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Yes, please. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight?
It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here.
Huh. You hadn't considered that. But it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were.
Let's go.
Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. Okay, I mean, I can understand that family dinners are probably a bit awkward at the moment and everything. But why just me? Like, why not my mom's? Why not me and Elizabeth? Why not a lot of things? Is it because I make Cove the most comfortable? Am I just that nice to be around? I don't know. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places.
I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast.
Yeah. I know I am.
Yeah.
Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you're able to make it, Molly, and on such short notice, too.
Yeah, I would have thanked them for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
All right.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please, dig in. You can help yourselves to the food.
Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. You know, Mexican food is something I've very rarely had. Let's see, at 13, how was I picky-wise by then? I was definitely coming out of my picky era. I can work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates.
Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde?
Of course.
Thanks.
Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous.
Jealous? Of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra.
Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You weren't sure what to say, nor did you want to interrupt them by blurting something out. But without warning, Cove's parents started pulling you into the small talk.
Molly, do you want anything from my area of the table? Say the word and I'll hand it right over.
Oh, I'm good, Mr. Holden, but thank you.
Marvelous.
You should try some of the guacamole, Molly. It's been a while since I've had Cliff's, but I remember it being amazing.
Guacamole Molly. Sounds great.
Aw.
You are too kind.
Everything looks great, Dad. As always.
Thanks, sport. Glad you think so.
Cove smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silences interspersed the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again.
Now then.
Yes? You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How's everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You been keeping busy this summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break?
That was a lot of questions. Yeah, probably surprised, but didn't mind the interest. You hadn't expected so many questions, and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going? Either this or this. Probably I would tell them how my moms are doing. You should ask my parents about it yourself, dang. Yeah, my moms are great. Mom took us out for dessert a couple weeks ago since her project went really well.
Is that so? I'll have to congratulate her when I see her.
And how things are at the house? Has it been good? I think, based on all the moments I've seen so far, things have been good, other than, like, there was the one hiccup with learning about me and Lizzie's past, but we all, like, handled it fairly well, I think. It's been good.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And as for the things I've done this summer, you should know what I've been up to, since so much has included your family, dang. I'm not sure where to start. There's so much that's happened. Mr. Holden's brows raised when you answered with that.
You sure are keeping yourself busy. I could learn a thing or two from you.
And that was it. Kyra nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you.
Did you know, Cliff, Molly is really into socializing?
Mr. Holden's face lit up, and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arms braced against the table. Yes, with, like, my peers. I would like to add a... Pardon me. I would like to add a caveat to this, to the socializing thing at 13. With my peers.
Nice work.
Oh, that's right. Very cool.
How is socializing a hobby or something to be serious about? I did read that right? Really into socializing.
Nice work.
I don't even know what to say about that. I guess I'm gonna have to go with the third one. I mean, yeah, it's nice to hang out with friends. That's all I meant by it. Oh, it's not a big thing.
Aw, don't downplay your interests like that.
Kyra's right. If you enjoy it, then it's definitely a big thing.
Thanks. I don't know if your definition of socializing and my definition of socializing is the same thing, but okay. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. ... There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted not for the first time that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. Nope, I'm good. Just eating my food. Mr. Holden was the one who spoke, glancing at his son before turning to you with an easy grin.
Speaking of hobbies, Cove's been playing some tennis this summer. He and Kyra keep hitting the court together. Who would have guessed?
You had already known that, since Cove is so open with you, but it was interesting to hear his parents' perspective on it. The rest of the dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Thanks.
That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff.
Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. Stop. Adorable. He beamed, flattered by the praise. I always did eat way too much when I went over for meals, so... You practically licked your plate clean. You were so full that you were afraid you might burst. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now, toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice.
Ahem. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Molly. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
Did I hear that right? This is the first time Molly has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited her over sooner?
Cove was always the one going over to Molly's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Wave Rider family to host my kid?
Kyra shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad.
This guy, honestly.
The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence. By now, he'd stopped fiddling with his fork.
I mean...
Nani?
Would it be alright for Molly to stay over? Like, for the night?
He shot you a side. I'm sorry, I'm short-circuiting. He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little.
If you're cool with that.
Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. I don't think Cove meant it the way you're worried about. It's not. We're not. Well. I am blushing so hard in my seat right now. The secondhand embarrassment is real. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands, while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. This has been the most awkward family dinner ever. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. What is with that smile? After a bit, they broke the group up. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too.
We, Kyra and I, think that should be fine. But...
He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own.
We'll have to talk with Molly's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it.
Yeah, we're not exactly, 6 years old anymore, so... Probably a good idea.
If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Molly's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do.
He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. Did I do it right? Did I say it right? She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. You guys are too cute. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone else. Namely your parents. Yeah, I noticed that. They're like, we're the cool parents. So we're not saying no, but if her parent, well then there's nothing we can do. We're the cool parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. He patted him on the back. Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Hey, you can always sneak into my room again! I don't even know if I would be a functioning human. At this point, what would I even do? I mean, no. I don't know if I would have it would have been exciting, but also I'm kind of relieved. It would have been exciting and terrifying to actually go through with it. I'm at a complete loss. Words of encouragement. Cheer up, Cove. I'm still here right now, aren't I? And things will work out somehow. Though he still appeared upset, the corners of his lips lifted a little in appreciation of your comfort. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Thank goodness. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange, sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. I knew she was going to get some kind of game. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling.
So, who's up for a few rounds?
Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. The smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good.
Yeah. Nervous for sure. Now what? You got through dinner all right, but you didn't know how the rest of the evening would go. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation.
All right, I'm ready.
As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead, without even a word. You stared on confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and riffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts.
Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when at home. He puts it away.
What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. Do you bet real money on card games? With your family? While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right. $5 per round per person. Winner takes all.
Go big or go home.
Oh? Are you planning on kicking Molly to the curb? Or do you intend on donating to the Guest of Honor's pot, Mr. High Roller?
Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Molly wants to play, I'll fund her way in. Don't you worry about that.
Oh, now I'm getting money again. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. I'm so at a loss. I'm like, what do I do? Where's my option to be like, can I just go home and get my wallet if I'm gonna play? I don't want to take any more money from his dad. You know what? I'm just gonna be awkward. Yep, this is how I'm gonna get through the evening. If you'd known about this beforehand, you could have grabbed some money you had stashed away, or done something to prepare for this.
You can let me pay for Molly. She's my friend.
Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle. Fine.
Good kid.
All right, bud. I concede. You're too polite for me.
Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in?
You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, Kyra softened her competitive smile.
Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think?
Okay. I mean, if it's Go Fish, and Cove wants me to play, and his hopes were dashed about a sleepover and stuff, I'll join in. Yes, of course. You set your jaw and nodded at her. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. I was decent at Go Fish from what I remember. Sometimes you won, sometimes you lost. You like to think you weren't bad at it, though.
Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash but are still refusing to quit while they're behind.
Speaking for yourself, I see.
With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin.
Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks.
In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round.
You're a natural.
Nicely done. You'd better keep those wits about you for the next round, though.
As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time you even spotted a smile on his lips. You didn't win many of the games, but the others always chipped in for you. In fact, it was always a bit of a fight over who got to be your backer. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. Yeah. You were glad you got this chance to come over to spend time with the three of them. Okay, you know what? What started like really awkward ended up being quite nice by the end. Even though my brain short-circuited for a lot of it. We got through it! Yay! Okay, delightful. And I only made Cove a little bit sad when I didn't sit next to him on the bed. That's okay. We'll get back that lost affection next time.